These are words out of the mouths of Republicans, former Trump administration Republicans. I think it's very clear that we don't want an FBI director who's got an enemies list. We don't want an FBI director who sees his principal mission as a revenge tour. James Brown, one of my favorite performers, has a song called The Big Payback. There's a place for that in funk and the dance floor, but not at the FBI. And with that, I'll turn it over to Representative McClellan, who represents the district in Virginia.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan. I have the privilege of representing Virginia's 4th Congressional District. And as you heard, we are here to raise the alarm of why our Senate colleagues should reject the confirmation of Kash Patel to be director of the FBI. In our letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee, we expressed our deep concerns over his lack of qualifications, over his history of inflammatory statements, but let me remind you what is at stake. The FBI stands as one of the most critical institutions in our democracy. It is tasked with defending our national security, and it is tasked with upholding the rule of law. The FBI director must be someone who is of unimpeachable character, impartiality, and has a deep commitment to the rule of law and the administration of justice. The FBI plays a critical role in protecting public safety, in upholding civil rights, and whoever holds this position is responsible for preventing national security threats, maintaining public trust, and uncovering schemes of fraud, abuse, and corruption. Kash Patel does not possess the temperament, the professional experience, or the characteristics necessary to do this critically important job. Now, I represent Virginia, which is home to the FBI Laboratory Investigation, the Operational Technology Division, the FBI Academy at Quantico, 2 FBI field offices, and we have thousands of Virginians who work for the FBI. And those agents who serve our nation and uphold the rule of law throughout their careers deserve better for an FBI director than Kash Patel. He has literally published an enemies list. And under the Trump administration, the Department of Justice has received detailed information about over 5,000 FBI agents who were involved in investigating the January 6th insurrection. These brave men and women took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States from enemies foreign or domestic. And just last week, the wife of one of those FBI agents who lives in Richmond detailed the fear and anxiety that they now must endure in a letter to the editor to one of the local publications in my district. And here is what she wrote. The decision to publicly name and punish these professionals does not only put their lives at risk, but also endangers their spouses, children, and loved ones. The fear we now live with is profound. The loss of anonymity has placed us in the crosshairs of political extremism, making even the most basic aspects of going to work, sending our children to school, interacting in our own communities, fraught with risk. Is this really what America has come to? Where the wives and children and husbands and loved ones of those people who dedicate and risk their lives to keep us safe fear for their own? No, that is not the nation we want to be. But time and time again, Mr. Patel has shown that he is a Trump sycophant who will come up with excuses and justifications to shield the president, enable his actions with no regard for their legality, and punish anyone who dares to speak up. He has tried to excuse President Trump's unauthorized transfer and storage of classified information to Mar-a-Lago. He promised to dismantle the FBI on day one and turn it into a museum to the deep state. And our FBI agents, the communities they keep safe, and the American people deserve better. They deserve assurances they will not be subject to political prosecution at the hands of a federal agent. And Mr. Patel has not proven that he can do that. With that, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague from Rhode Island, Congressman Seth Magaziner.
Thank you very much to my colleagues, Congressman McClellan and Congressman Ivey, for convening us here today. I'm a member of the Homeland Security Committee. I served on that committee with Gwen, and I'm currently the ranking member for Counterterrorism, Intelligence, and Law Enforcement on the Homeland Security Committee. And we are here today to appeal one more time to any Republican senators. If you care about national security, if you care about public safety, if you care about our Constitution and our system of government, then vote no on Kash Patel. Vote no on Kash Patel, the most unqualified nominee in the history of the FBI. I want everyone to think for a moment about your hometown. In your hometown, would you feel good about a chief of police being hired who had never been a police officer before? Of course not. Yet Donald Trump is appointing someone to head the nation's most important federal law enforcement agency who has never worn a badge, never conducted an arrest, never served in law enforcement before. Woefully unqualified. Why is Donald Trump appointing someone so unqualified to lead the FBI? Because Donald Trump knows that Kash Patel will enact a political agenda on his behalf. We should not have a director of the FBI who has no law enforcement experience, who has a publicly published enemies list, who has threatened to jail members of the media simply for reporting that Joe Biden won the 2020 election, who has championed and fundraised for the January 6th rioters who attacked police officers in this very building. This is someone who is dangerous, who is unfit, and who must be rejected. The FBI plays an absolutely crucial role in combating terrorism, organized crime, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and more. It is too important an agency for someone so unqualified to come in and play political games with. That is why we are here today, and that is why we are calling on the senators to do the right thing and vote no. It is now my pleasure to introduce a colleague who serves on the Judiciary Committee, Sydney Kamlager-Dove.
Thank you, Seth, and I want to thank Jen McClellan and also Glenn Ivey for leading this charge. My name is Sydney Kamlager-Dove. I represent California's 37th Congressional District. I just came from the Judiciary Committee where we actually had witnesses raise their hand and swear under perjury, right, to tell the truth. It seems, well, not to perjure themselves, to tell the truth, which does not seem to be something that we care about with Kash Patel. Kash Patel is a freak, and not the Rick James kind. It is a thumbs down for crooked Kash. This is a guy who openly attacked the FBI and compromised its relationship with the intelligence community, and now he could be running the damn thing? That is just plain stupid. The baseline qualification for any leadership position should be respecting the organization and its employees. I mean, that is a very low bar. But like 99% of Trump's nominees, Kash Patel embodies the only two attributes needed to serve in this administration: complete unqualification and an unhealthy obsession with Donald Trump. And he takes the latter to a whole new level. The first time he served in Trump's administration, he took heat for being singularly focused on pleasing Trump. And when that gig was up, he missed Trump so much that he wrote a series of children's books praising King Donald. That is sick. And now he's promising to go after those he considers the deep state and enemies of Donald Trump. Last I checked, when I just got on the website today, that is not what the website for the FBI says. It says to protect the United States and its citizens and to uphold the Constitution. But where is that line? Is he going to target Granny for posting on Facebook about Dawn and Elon stealing her Social Security check? Will his goons show up at the doors of election workers who resisted Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election? Who knows? We don't even have the answers for those questions. Americans should not have to worry about their FBI director being more focused on hunting down Trump's foes than terrorists. And Kash Patel is so dangerous that even Republicans warned he was bad news until Donald Trump told them to shut up and get in line. So my question is this: why are Republicans okay with crooked Kash lying under oath and committing perjury? And why are Republicans okay with turning up the Constitution? But if Kash Patel is confirmed, Americans will be less safe, and it will be because of every spineless, un-American, unpatriotic Republican who prioritized loyalty to Donald Trump over loyalty to their constituents and the United States Constitution. Thank you, and I'm going to give it back to Glenn Ivey.
Terrific. Okay.
Thank you, Representative.
First question, Rebecca with the Hill.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to sort of understand, like, a lot of the stuff that you guys have pointed to in terms of his history, his comments on podcasts, a lot of this stuff has been out there for a while. So I'm curious, do you feel like your Republican Senate colleagues are kind of willfully ignoring this information? And then I'm also kind of curious what your strategy is to kind of break through and get these problems to resonate with them before this vote.
Well, you're right. I mean, a lot of this has been out actually for years, including some of it came from his book that he wrote himself. I think Senator Durbin raised a new issue, though, with respect to whether he lied under oath, with respect to having no knowledge of the effort to purge the FBI. I think he testified he didn't know anything about it in several variations of that. But it sounds like there's a whistleblower who's saying he does. And it is a little curious that the day after he testified, the purge kind of began with the call for the name. So I think that's new information. I think any of that would be, any of these individual aspects would be, I think, disqualifying just on their own. But certainly when you add them all up together, I think that's clearly the case. I'm sure others who want to comment on that.
They have selective amnesia, and this is a time when you should not, when you should be doing every single thing you can to make sure. They have selective amnesia, and this is the absolute time when you should not. And in some of the hearings we're having of substance, we are talking about terrorists, we are talking about China, we are talking about AI, we are talking about so many issues that are deeply concerning to the American people and to our national security. And it makes sense that you would have someone who's going to be heading the FBI who is honest, transparent, and saying that they're willing to uphold the Constitution. And one of their first acts, even before they are confirmed, is to commit perjury, is deeply concerning for anyone who says that they are an American.
All right, Mitchell Miller, excuse me, go ahead.
Not that. I mean, look, a lot of these Republican members of Congress, Senate and House, they know that Kash Patel is a bad pick. They know he's unqualified, just like they know Tulsi Gabbard was unqualified and Pete Hegseth and many of the other nominees. But they're scared, right? They are scared of Donald Trump. They're scared of Elon Musk. But they need to be scared of the voters who elected them as well. And part of what we are doing is continuing to educate people, to sound the alarm, because ultimately, if Kash Patel, among others, is as destructive as we fear he will be, then these Republican senators are going to own that for years to come, and we need to make sure that they hear that.
All right, Mitchell Miller.
Question for Congressman Ivey. As was just alluded to, Kash Patel has said that he wanted to facetiously or not create a museum to the deep state with the FBI headquarters. As you're well aware, plans are being made for a new FBI headquarters in Maryland. Do you have concerns that his confirmation as director, if that happens, will in some ways either endanger or undermine plans moving forward for that? Also, there's been talk about what DOJ might do with the GSA, and that may be a secondary issue as well.
Well, and I've got a colleague from Virginia here, too, who may want to comment as well, so I'll give her the chance. But my initial take on that is that it's really the GSA role to make a decision about site selection, not really the FBI. In fact, they turn it over. The GSA is kind of the landlord for the federal government, and the site selection piece is their role. Whether there are going to be attacks on the GSA, apparently Elon and Donald are looking to attack every department and agency in the federal government. And the unfortunate part is you know, there are probably things that could be done to improve the government. I'm sure that there are, but I'd say use a scalpel instead of a chainsaw. These guys are just they're just trying to push people out, as many federal employees as possible, not because it makes the government better, but it gives him additional funds to do his forthcoming tax cuts for billionaires. So, we used to say billionaires, it was kind of a faceless term, but we now saw who was standing with him when he was inaugurated. Regular folks couldn't get in, but the richest people in the world could.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I mean, the GSA, we've already seen that part of what Elon Musk and the Doge Bros want to do is take that over, look at public lands, look at public assets, and look at what to sell off, because they're trying to get money anywhere they can to pay for this tax cut for billionaires. And they're willing to sell out the FBI and the agents in the process. And I think to the earlier point, you know, our press conference today, our letter today may not stop the Senate from confirming Kash Patel, but we will not stand silently by while this administration, whether it's through the FBI, whether it's through the OMB, whether it's through the GSA, whether it's through some made-up agency that is not authorized by anyone, run by somebody who hasn't been vetted, we will not stand silently by while you try to erode the very foundation of democracy and government that serves the American people and not King Donald.
Right here.
So when FISA 702 was being negotiated, we saw Republicans and Democrats kind of forming unions on different sides of the issue. I think we could probably see DOJ reform and FBI reform attempted at some point this Congress. Do you think that's possible still?
I mean, it's going to come up again with the authorization. I mean, we're going to have to deal with FISA with 702 again, right? Because it was just a 2-year, a 2-year extension. So, honestly, standing up here, I don't know who's on what side. I mean, I know what side I was on, but we're going to have to take it up regardless.
Specifically, Department of Justice or even FBI reform. You know, is that possible to partner with Republicans on, or is this could be an issue with Kash Patel getting this job?
I mean, certainly Kash Patel getting this job will make everything more complicated because, again, his interests are political, not policy. And yeah, no, it'll be a challenge. I think that the way to do reform is to have a debate out in the open and to compete on the basis of ideas, not to go in as an unelected billionaire and just start firing people left and right and asking people to basically fill out loyalty questionnaires because they happen to have been assigned to work on the January 6th investigation. Like, that's not reform. That is political retribution. It's tremendously damaging. It's not going to make the country more safe. It's not going to lower the cost of living, and it's not going to make us more secure.
Yeah, just kind of quickly on that point, I think I was one of the last members to make a final decision, certainly on the Judiciary Committee, before the floor vote, as to which way to go. And part of that was based on meetings that we had in the SCIF, where members of the Department of Justice, the FBI, National Security, came in and told me things, which I can't disclose now, obviously, but it really came down to whether you trust them or not. Do you believe that they're telling you the truth, or are they just trying to hang on to the power that they have? And I trusted them in the decision that I made. Will I be able to trust the team that Trump's putting together at the Department of Defense, National Security, FBI? You got to be kidding me. I mean, you know, Patel took the fifth instead of testifying in front of a grand jury. And then they compelled him by immunizing him to testify. And then when they asked him about it at the Senate confirmation hearing, he refused to explain what he said, even though the rule that governs grand jury secrecy explicitly says that the witness can tell people what he said in the grand jury. He refused to state it. How can you trust somebody like that? I mean, it's just incredible to me. But that's where they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you identify what?
Nathan Worcester, Epic Times. I'm wondering, once assuming he is confirmed, do you think that in the House you'll be able to launch an investigation, even something up to, given the example of the resolution to impeach Christopher Wray as FBI director, an impeachment?
You mean you think Democrats can push that? I mean, we don't control the majority, so that's challenge number one. But first step, just to give you an example, Last week in the Oversight Committee, Ranking Member Jerry Conley said, Elon Musk is doing all of these things across the board, doing all these investigations, going into highly classified and personal information. He's never had a confirmation hearing. He's never given a press conference. DOJ doesn't even have a website that gives any information about it. Why don't we get a subpoena, Mr. Chairman, and have him come and testify and explain what he's doing? And then yesterday he had the nerve in the Oval Office to talk about the importance of transparency. But do you think he's actually going to come up here? No. And of course, Comer's not going to issue a subpoena to make him come. So impeachment, if we could just get to transparency, disclosure, and accountability, that would be a big step in the right direction. But the Republicans in the House and the Senate aren't even for that, apparently.
Did anyone else want to address that question? What's your name and
Yeah,
outlet?
Torian Small with CBS News. To your point about the ability of what your party can and can't do, there's reporting out that suggests that Grassroots allies are a bit frustrated with Democrats for not being able to combat the Trump administration more, especially as it relates to Patel. Senate Democrats, especially in that committee, have laid out this case against Patel in great detail, including Senator Durbin just recently sending a letter to investigate Patel to the Inspector General's office over the DOJ. What's your response to that, to these Grassroots allies potentially growing more and more frustrated that you guys aren't doing more?
Well, I agree. The only thing I would tweak on that is reach out to the Republicans, because they're the ones that are actually controlling what happens in the Senate, certainly with the confirmation votes. Most of these have been party line votes, that have been remotely controversial. And we just did a town hall meeting last night. I was doing it with Joyce Beatty in Ohio. People were calling in and saying, what can we do to help? And one of the things we said was, you've got 2 Republican senators in Ohio. Give them a call. Let them know how you feel about what's going on and the need to, in this instance, vote against someone who's going to make the United States less safe, vote against someone who is a green light to our enemies overseas to try and take steps against us, vote against someone who doesn't really know how to take on the traffickers and the cartels, and vote against someone whose primary mission isn't to keep the country safe, but to launch a retribution tour against Donald Trump's perceived enemies. We need to keep fighting. We need to make sure we do more here in the Congress to keep it going. The courts have been great. I think there are 55 cases roughly, and I believe there's at least 8 injunctions. I don't think any injunctions have been denied anywhere in the United States, so we need to keep building on that. And then the public pushes that we've made, the rallies and the things, this is not so much just on this nomination, but on the attack on government workers has been gaining some ground too.
Yeah, and I would add on that if there's one thing in life that is certain other than death, it's math. And 218 is always greater than 215. And we need 3 House Republicans to do the right thing for the American people on this and any other issue on the House side. And we need Republicans on the Senate side to put the American people over politics and do the right thing. And so we are using the tools that the Constitution gives members of Congress in the minority party the ability to use. Those are not the only 2 tools that we as Americans have. And grassroots activists have an important role to play making their voice heard, especially putting pressure on Republicans. Hey, why don't you be one of the 3 in the House or one of the ones we need in the Senate to do the right thing? Because right now, Republicans feel the pressure if they buck Donald Trump when he's wrong. They fear repercussions. They need to also fear repercussions at the ballot box if they don't do what the American people want them to do. And this is an all-hands-on-deck moment. We cannot, as members of Congress, do this alone. We need grassroots activists. We need our attorney generals in the states who have been suing. We need affiliate organizations who are suing in the courts. This is an all-hands-on-deck moment to save American democracy and to save the services and programs that the American people expect government to provide to them, whether it is keeping them safe through the FBI or whether it is to ensure they can get health care and that if they're on Medicaid, they'll be able to get it. You cannot count on 215 to overcome 218 without those three.
We have time for one or two more questions over there. Can you identify yourself and your organization, please?
I'm Kristen Eskow with News Nation. Looking at what happened with Chris Wray leaving his role before the end of his term, assuming that in a few years there's a Democratic president who may not want to keep Kash Patel around should he be confirmed, are you concerned about this position moving away from the 10-year terms, or do you think it should be a position where perhaps each president can choose their own FBI director?
I mean, my quick take, I'll give everybody else a chance too, is I like the 10-year term approach. I thought it helped to shield directors from, politics. So we don't want them turning over just with every administration. I would note, though, that we've kind of moved away from that over the years. Sometimes we've had people that have left earlier than, now fired, as happened with Director Wray. But I got to say, though, if, Patel is still there and we get a Democrat in the White House in 4 years, I think he should definitely go. He shouldn't be there to start with. And, a guy with this kind of conduct who wouldn't even be allowed to be an FBI agent. This is almost as bad as the DOD scenario where the Secretary of Defense would have gotten washed out as a private for the conduct that he exhibited that was demonstrated at the confirmation hearings. I think you replace those guys. Now, I'll stop there. I'll give everybody else a chance if they want to as well.
Well, I would just add that we are not in normal times. And so there's a false premise where folks are asking us normal questions and wanting us to behave normally when we are walking right into a constitutional crisis. There is nothing that is happening from the Republicans that is normal. And every single person should be afraid. They should be afraid that they will have no more rights, no more freedoms. They will have no more eggs. They will have no more privacy. They will have no more access to the government, to services that they deserve. Because the folks who are coming in, who are getting confirmed, are more interested in pleasing Donald Trump than they are in building up the United States. And my question is, not one person has said, I love this country. I'm here to fight for this country. Not one of them who is getting confirmed has said that. You asked about FISA. I mean, we've been here for over a month. They have the White House, the Senate, and Congress. We should be having substantive bills coming to the floor every single day. Donald Trump told them to work it out, and they're running up into their conferences, and who knows what they're doing, but they're not bringing substantive bills like that to the floor. They don't have a plan other than making sure that they say yes to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's plan is to make them irrelevant and to govern by executive order. That is not normal.
Okay, folks, we appreciate your time, and we know you're trying to wrap up, so thanks again for coming. And any final words from the members here, and then we'll wrap up and conclude our press conference.
Thanks to all of you for coming. It's a rare press conference where James Brown and Rick James get mentioned. But thanks for coming out.
Black History Month.
Thanks, everybody. There's a copy of the letter in the press release, so if you need to access that and look at it, it's in the press release that you all got.
Very cool, thank you.